Hey there, welcome to our AP Legal Zone podcast, brought to you by AP Lawyers. We are your top fix for all weekly law updates, including family, immigration, wills, and estates law. Just a friendly reminder, we are not your lawyers, and everything contained in this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and not to be construed as legal advice. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you can stay connected with any updates and get notified about our new episodes.
Hello, I'm Angela Princewill.
And I'm Sherine Abdi.
And our topic today is why income source matters. If you're going through, a separation or divorce and child and spousal support is an issue, the income on which support is based matters. And here's why. We're actually going to go through 4 kind of high-level reasons on why the type of income that a person earns matters. For most people, I would say the vast majority of people are in employment incomes. A lot of people's taxes get deducted at source. And so it's easy to overlook people's respective sources of income. And also bearing in mind that some people have combined sources of incomes, right? So a person may earn employment income while also earning rental income, for example.
Or investment income.
Yes. So it's important to isolate and look into each source of income because you may be shortchanging yourself if you do otherwise. And one of the reasons why income type matters is the tax rates that you pay, right? So for, if you're earning income in the highest tax bracket and you're an employee, you're probably looking at about 53.53%. That's what it would usually come to in Ontario. But if you earn that money, rather not as employment income, but you earn it as dividends, for example, and and there's a distinction between eligible and non-eligible dividends, but if it's eligible dividend, then you're looking at 39% tax rate. The difference between 39% and 53% is a whole lot of dollars that can be applied towards paying support to the other party, right? Drew, do you want to talk about maybe capital gains? That's another,
Yeah, so also if you maybe sold a property in a particular year or an investment and you're attributing capital gains, for the most part, you may be taxed at half the gain, which is inappropriate if you're looking at support just based off that premise. You could also have losses, capital losses that you can attribute to offset some of those gains. So you might be earning your income and your tax rate may be entirely different. So, while you may earn the exact same in value, I wouldn't be paying the tax.
And one person, so that leaves more dollars in a person's hands with which they can pay,
which needs to be attributed to them. So
and all hope is not lost for the person that is taking advantage of this, would I say, lower tax opportunity, I guess. Yeah. You're expected in family court, you're expected to be smart about your income, you're expected to maximize your taxes. That's what it is, the way it is. So no one judges for that. But it's just the whole idea is to make sure that, the income type is given the proper treatment. So let's say for rental income, for example, it's not impossible to see a person with $100,000 in gross rental income, but end up with a loss in their net rental income.
Yeah, and may have, $10,000 of net rental income.
No, that's even if you even had the 10,000, it might not even be. I'm talking about even a complete loss.
Oh, okay.
And the problem with that loss is that it would offset their employment income. So now the employment income is now even lower. So it's important to look, or maybe not employment, but another source of income, whatever the case may be. Now, if you're in a conversation about how much do we use in determining, a person's support obligation, if you're the person that has these lower taxed income, you might want to show that it's legitimate, right? So if it's rental income, for example, it might be a fact that it's actually there's expenses that you're incurring. It's not impossible someone buys a property and has to invest a lot of money into it initially for it to become profitable.
Even COVID, there was a lot of tenants that weren't able to pay. So it's not, beyond us to think that there would be a loss in rental income. We understand that. But what we want to know, what we essentially want to take care of is take a closer look. See what those numbers are, especially if, they are the support payer and our client's the recipient.
Yeah.
We want to make sure we exercise every avenue and get them, the best disclosure that we can and the appropriate means of income.
And take advantage of the lower taxes that someone's paying. For example, depending on your background, you may even be tax exempt in Canada. So again, in that case, we can't treat your $100,000 income the same way it will be another person's 100,000 would be treated, because you're getting yours completely tax free. So that again is why we don't just want to hear just a number thrown out. You want to see, what does this relate to? What type of, how did this money get made? Another reason why income type matters is because of how much control a person can have over how much they earn and when. And in this case, I'm thinking mostly about people that have corporations. Yes. Because if you're the sole owner or one of the primary shareholders of the corporation, it's just an arbitrary decision on how much you decide to pay yourself as a dividend.
Yeah, or how much you want to draw as a salary if you're paying yourself as an employee.
And then,
so many different
you can make $1 million, pay yourself $100,000 because that's enough to meet your expenses,
and run all your expenses through the corporation. So
and now you have $900,000 or whatever is left over sitting in the corporation, growing in there for you while you're paying support on this lower amount. And again, I keep going back to, that's not unreasonable to do for financial planning purposes. But if we're trying to uncover how much a person should be getting in support, and we want to make sure that the maximum amount is available for support, then we're going to look into how much control, right? If you have a corporation and you're a primary shareholder, we're going to assume you have control over how much you're earning.
We're going to take a look at the financial statements. We're going to see what assets are available, where the money is actually, if it's sitting there, if it's going to be forming part of some sort of income. But ideally, what we're kind of getting to say is, what you report to CRA is not how we're going to treat your income for family law purposes.
Yeah, I found so recently I had a file where the ex has a corporation, and in this case it's the ex-wife has a corporation, and we're exchanging disclosure for calculating proportionate sharing of children's Section 7 expenses. So I want to see how much money is available to the ex-wife to contribute to the children's expenses with the husband, that's my client. And I noticed that the income was about 200,000, but then I'm hearing about the lifestyle and things like that. So I look back on the financial statements of the corporation, and I see there's these shareholder loans being drawn. And I'm like, okay, because again, my clients say, no, we lived a lifestyle that had required a lot more income than what I'm seeing here. And what I noticed was in the last couple of years during the separation process, rather than drawing, $400,000 as income as would ordinarily have been done, or not necessarily income, whatever way the money was gotten, dividends, whatever. But in this case, it's left in the corporation. Instead, she's taking loans from the corporation. That's not going to appear on your notice of assessment. It would ordinarily not be considered income. So again, that's why the income type matters, because if she were a regular employee, she would not be able to do this, right? So
yeah, and even in looking at if you're paying for example tuition, for a child, you may carry over some of those unused tuition credits as a parent. And then, reduce your income. So there's so many different factors, and, where you say, I can't afford to pay this, expense, as you said, I can't afford to pay this. Then we would look at, okay, well, you're offsetting some maybe tuition costs or credits you're getting for this. So your income should have been this, and so there's some funds available. So there's so many different elements to income. Obviously, if you're a T4 employee, who doesn't own a corporation, it's a little more simpler.
Yeah. I mean, T4 employees can still write off,
Yes, there are certain
can get those
eligible
deductions.
expenses.
But
depending
no,
on
I mean,
employer.
like your example with the funds that are being, or the tuition credits.
Yep.
And again, that's all fine to deduct, make all of these deductions. I think I'm more concerned about the source of income, because in terms of some of these deductions, you can take it on whatever income that you have. That's fine. It's available to everybody. But there's some that are only available to specific income types. So, the capital gains, for example, is not available to the tax treatment for capital gains is not available to anyone else. The dividends, things like that. So if you have a corporation, the way you can control how much you earn and when you earn it, you have, for the most part, a lot of people have control. Corporations have control over their year end. So they can also, if they want to structure and time things to coincide with something that would suit them, all they have to do is adjust their tax years accordingly. And I could be looking at something. So again, there's room for, I'm trying to avoid using the word manipulation, but there's room for creativity.
Accounting. That's what I feel like.
So yeah,
I've said it before and it's stuck with me.
So we have to think about that. But the other reason why income types matter as well is the ability to deduct, personal expenses. You had touched on this a little bit earlier, Sherine, where you said, well, you can choose to draw zero income if you like, even, and then run all of your expenses through either your self-employment, your sole proprietorship, or your corporation. A lot of employees don't have the benefit of doing that. So if we're treating your business income and just looking at, okay, what's the net amount you made, and using that as your income for support purposes, it wouldn't really be consistent, considering that a person that's earned $100,000 as an employment income has to buy their gas, their
lease payments, and things like that. They can offset certain things, whereas an employee can't.
So if you're self-employed, you could write off your lease payments. You could pay for your gas through the business, various subscriptions, memberships. A lot of people do that with their pre-tax income. So
rental income, rental renovation, anything really, like this can go on, but ideally so there's a lot of room for expenses and deductions there. Discretionary ones as well.
Another thing people can also do in these situations is, if they have a new spouse, for example, they could choose to pay that spouse an income, right? So that's something, again, we need to look at closely, because it reduces the money that's available. And the way that would sort of play out in an example would be, take my 100,000, pay my spouse 50,000 for whatever I want to call it, and then I only take 50,000 income, and it's only my income that's being looked at for support purposes. However, my spouse has the other half of the income. If the spouse is doing work that's valued in the free market as the $50,000 worth of work, that's perfectly fine. We're talking here about a scenario where it's just a way of splitting income and kind of reducing the amount of money that's available for support purposes. So the last reason we want to touch on today is unreported income, or simply put, cash income. So it's one thing to talk about, we're talking about monies that have made their way into CRA's knowledge for the most part, or to some kind of financial statement or ledger. What about all those monies that go unreported?
Exactly. Cash income, under the table income.
Yes.
And if we are able to find some sort of history of that, we will
it needs to be imputed.
And we would also gross it up because it's received tax free.
Yes.
So there's different mechanisms, but yes, unreported income is a very important income source, also difficult to prove some of the times, especially because if it's at cash in hand and you're not depositing it into different tracing and sources. But, if you're, maybe have $100,000 of expenses, but only earn like $30,000 in employment income, and there's not a lot of debt that you've incurred, we're going to be raising our eyebrows just a little bit, and we're going to dig a little deeper, because there's some source of income that's not being reported.
Absolutely. And all I can just think of is, I'm thinking back to our 100,000 example of income, capital gains, and now cash. So A person with an 100,000 employment income gets to pay, I don't know, let's say 50%. That could be wrong, by the way, but let's just say it's 50% taxes. Then the person that's on the capital gains income just gets to pay taxes on $50,000. So obviously they're not even paying 50% taxes. Then down to the person with cash income that gets to pay $0 in taxes. So clearly they win. They have like their $100,000 in cash, and that is fine. I mean, we're not here to enforce tax rules. That's up to CRA, and a lot of these could be legitimate. I mean, I don't know how the cash income would be viewed, but for the capital gains, it's all legit. Dividends, all those other things are legit. Expenses that are incurred, some of them might be grayish, but for the most part, their CRA allows that. But you can see from my oversimplification that it could make a huge difference in the money that is available to you as a support payer to pay support, and also that the recipient can get to, financially support themselves as well. So long story short, income types matter because all incomes aren't created equal. That was also corny, but all right, guys, thanks and bye for now.
Thanks for listening and joining us in the AP Legal Zone. We hope you enjoyed this episode. You can find more episodes by searching AP Legal Zone on anywhere you watch podcasts. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast today so you can stay connected with any updates and get notified about any new episodes.